When extracting lines from the point cloud with the intent to eventually take it into a family, save it as a family, and continue modeling in that environment, you have two main options. You can either set up levels and draw model lines at those levels, maybe do some slicing along with that so that you can see at that level and digitize a bit better. Or you can use a model line in association with a Revit work plane as a reference plane, and then use the Fit Polygon tool to fit it better to the cloud. Each has its own benefits and pitfalls, and we'll take a look at those coming up. So I think it's important to understand that when you're setting a Revit work plane, there are two main types: those that are based on levels and those that are based on reference planes. When using the Fit Polygon tool of As Built for Revit, you must be using it with a reference plane. If you're trying to use Fit Polygon with lines that were drawn at a level and then fit it to the cloud, it will never work. So you have to have a reference plane first, and conveniently we can use our Revit work planes tools, or As Built for Revit work plane tools, to establish those. So let's do that. Since both of those workflows work with a reference plane, we can kind of compare the two after setting one up. We'll use the fit plane and endpoints. I'm in a side view. I want to capture the body of this transformer, and we'll look at the two different options. First, setting up the work plane, I'm picking several points. I'm trying to make it as much as possible parallel with ground, but if it's not, after I've clicked several points, I hit escape. I can always force the restriction in the dialog. So parallel with XY, I do not want bounding or model lines because I don't want to confuse those with the transformer lines. I'm going to create a reference plane so that I can set it up in the Revit work plane tools, and I'll just call this modeling transformer. Now I can see my Revit work plane there as I orbit. Maybe I don't want to see that, so I'm going to turn that off with my work plane tools there. Now let's look at these two options again. It's either model line drawing to the point cloud or using the model lines that you've drawn on the point cloud to further fit them with our Fit Polygon tool. So with the first option, using just good old Revit model line here, you can draw in a plan view, knowing that you're going to be drawing to that work plane that we just established. And I drew a couple lines there. I'm going to delete this one because that's not going to be a part of the body that I'm using there. Then I can use this guy's start and radius, and at this point I may wish to turn on my Revit snaps and just make it so that I'm not also snapping to point clouds, and that way when I'm snapping here, I'm just snapping end to end and then picking out to the radius. Again, end to end, out to the radius. And thinking about that as an extrusion, that's going to create a nice extrusion that's not faceted. However, if you'd like to use the Fit Polygon tool, we can take a look at this on one half and compare the two later on. Alright, so going back here, we're going to go to the model line tool. There's a few things that can help when doing this workflow. Number one, turn off your Revit snaps. The second thing is that when you're drawing the model line that you're going to use to fit, the first segment, you do want it to fit well on the point cloud and be a small segment. Then you can kind of spread your segments out, make the points further apart from one another, and then we'll set up our tool for the fitting. Okay, so there's what our line looks like right now, and we'll go to Fit Polygon, select it there. The point cloud slice thickness is good at 3/4 of an inch. Contour smoothing, the smaller the value, the more detail you're going to get in the line. More detail isn't always good because then anomalies in the data can cause it to not be the prettiest semicircle. So let's just half this value a few times. I find that 3/8 can often be good, but let's see what happens there. We'll hit start. You can see that it disappears, so it's doing some good fitting there, but let's select all of it. See the chain of lines, and you can see the little details that start to appear. You can always stretch those by grips, and another option is maybe to do a little less smoothing when you're doing the Fit Polygon. So let's do it again here, and this time we'll go with 3/4 and start. And if we hit tab there, still getting some wavering. So just, do what makes sense. This versus, having something like this is entirely up to the user, and you have choices. Next, we'll want to extract some other line work from the point cloud, and eventually, you're looking for everything that you might need in the family editor. So, the furthest extents east and west here on the transformer, I've outlined, these boxes that are mounted to the side of it. And then also the fins, created some models for those only on one side because I can mirror. And then the insulator on top, I did one of those, just a portion of it so that I can do a revolve. And it can be as detailed as you like, or maybe you don't even care about having the insulator like this and you just want a cylinder. When you're using the Save as Family tool, just remember that you can bring in arcs but not circles. So if you plan on using this as a cylinder, draw an arc for it, and then you can always go from center to radius inside of the family editor. Now, the most important part is we want to set this up so the reference level is good. And if I go to a side view here, let's go to, let's say, east elevation. Ooh, let's go into a section view, and we'll expand this a bit. You can see I've set up a transformer pad level. So if that's something you need to do, you can in 3D view set up a level using the as-built level tool. This is a really nice feature because otherwise if you're using Revit tools you have to be in an elevation view. But now I'm going to set that up as my work plane. So there's my transformer pad level. I'm going to go to the top view here, and now I'm going to draw that transformer pad, and I can see the outlines of it there. So I'll just do a model line, and one would want the rectangle tool to work. It may or may not, depending upon the way that your reference plane has been set up, but levels are pretty great. So for just drawing tools, using a level is the way to go. And now we can save this as a family. So I'll just hide my point cloud and use the Save as Family tool. Selecting electrical equipment is the way to go. If it's not already selected, just click the ellipses and find it. There we go. And then selecting your model lines, you can do a large window, select finish in the upper left. Transform your lines in relation to a work plane, super important, so that you can specify that this is your reference plane where the base of the transformer is. You can select and then pick a plane based on a model line, click OK, and then select one of the lines of the rectangle we just drew for the base. Save this as a family. We'll call this Transformer 001. If you want this to be also saved as a RFA file for use in other projects, you can just check this box, hit start, and then it'll ask you where you want to save it, and we'll just save it into that location, and you can find it down here for further editing.